Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. My name is Staff Sergeant Sam Kroll with the North Dakota National Guard's Public Affairs Office. I have a very special guest with me today, Leo Hughes. How are we doing, Leo?
Pretty good. How are you, Sam?
Fantastic. I can't complain.
Good.
I should address you by your rank as well. Chief Warrant Officer 2.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
that's
sir.
okay.
Mister.
That's all right.
So, talk a little bit about yourself, how you joined the military, etc.
So I joined the Guard about 14 years ago. I grew up in New Salem, North Dakota.
Nice.
One of my friends was in the Guard a couple months before me, and he goes, "Hey, you want to go up to Camp Grafton to go play some paintball?" And I was a senior in high school, and I was like, "Okay, sure, why not? I've never been. I don't know what Camp Grafton is." Long story short, I never went to that drill, and then 3 months later, I was at MEPS enlisting.
Oh, hey.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah. They saw me coming in the recruiter's office, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this guy'll join."
He'll do it. He'll do
Right.
it. I love it. So, what did you enlist into then?
My primary MOS when I was enlisted was a 25 Bravo,
Okay.
information technology specialist.
Sure. Okay. So, talk a little bit about how the information specialist MOS works.
Oh, it's been a long time since I've been a 25 Bravo. I guess, 14 years ago, you did a lot of routers and switches, a lot of
Sure.
programming those. There's a small section where we built computers.
Okay.
I don't think we actually touched any physical hardware at AIT, but, we got the how-tos on all of it, what all the components were and
Right.
how they all work together.
How long were you enlisted before you went to warrant?
It was about 10 years.
10 years?
Yes.
Okay. So, were you with, when you did information technology, were you in that 10-year span, were you with just one unit? Were you with a couple of different units?
So I've spent the majority of my career with the 188th Air Defense Artillery out of Grand Forks.
Okay.
I got back from AIT, and like every person back from AIT, or I think this was during AIT, I wanted to go active duty because I didn't want to go home and yada yada yada. The same story that almost every single guardsman has had during the first part of their career. I talked to one of my recruiters back home, and he said, "Well, I can get you moved from this unit into a different one that we know is deploying." And I moved from I think it was the 164
Sure.
to the 188th ADA before I'd even come back and done like my first drill back at home station.
Already making changes.
Yep. And then the next year, I actually reclassed it to a 25 Bravo or a 25 uniform, which is a signal support system specialist, which is sort of like a jack of all trades.
So you came back, or excuse me, you ended up finding a unit to deploy with before you came back.
Yes.
And then you immediately, I would assume, transferred to that unit.
Yep, I didn't even do a single drill with the 164. I came back and was already in the 188th ADA.
Okay, so what deployment was that?
So that was the first time we deployed on Operation Noble Eagle to the National Capital Region.
Oh, okay. So Operation Noble Eagle? Explain that.
That's just the name of the.
The mission type for it.
Yes, it's just the name of the mission
Sure.
in DC, the Air Defense Mission.
The ADA is one of the units in the state, if not with the highest op tempo of in-state, out-of-state missions. You know what I mean? They're deploying. I mean, we just had one return. There's a bunch of different people that are deploying constantly just for overseas missions, not overseas missions, but Noble Eagle specifically.
Yeah, it sure feels like we have a very high op tempo.
Yeah. So does that kind of feed that itch still that you may or may not have of, not being in active duty, but being a part of a unit that's really high in tempo?
Had you asked me 14 years ago if I wanted to go active duty, the answer would have been yes.
Yeah.
Me now, as the, like a fully fledged adult
Yeah.
in this world that
No
we're
longer
in,
17,
yeah,
18.
yeah. I don't think I would have been happy had I gone active duty. I don't
Sure.
think I would have got the same opportunities that I have now. I mean, maybe I would have. If you're a self-starter, you can really get yourself anywhere as long as you want it bad enough. You can do it essentially. But I'm not sure if going active duty would have been the correct career path for me.
Sure. Well, and to kind of caveat to that, you say opportunities. You're not just a Chief Warrant Officer now in the ADA. You're also a full-time technician for the J6.
Correct.
So what you work with the help desk, right? So working on computers, software, a lot of the stuff that you've done translates into now this full-time position.
Yeah. I started my full-time career back in January 2015.
Okay.
I came on as a telecommunications mechanic, pulling Ethernet cables and installing phones and doing a lot of the back-end work. So everything that you see like in the wall where you've got your data outlets, everything from that wall plate all the way back to the routers and switches.
Yeah.
That was my realm for a long time. And even before I became a technician, I did that for a local company here in Bismarck.
Oh, okay.
I worked there for 3-ish years.
Sure.
And then one of those I was deployed to DC for the first NCR mission. But I did that on the civilian side, and it gave me a strong enough resume to when that job opened up full-time in the Guard, I was able to apply for it and get that.
So talking about the ADA, we went over a little bit with Operation Noble Eagle. What's your favorite part about the ADA?
The people.
Yeah.
I know that sounds... Everybody says that, right?
Right.
The mission is a good one, right? Like when... I guess the ADA mission in general, right? Like when the headline reads that, there was an attack on U.S. forces, blah, 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 no service members injured or killed. That's the intent, right? Like that's what we provide to the forces. When we're attacked by air threats, we're able to defend against that and make sure that all the good guys don't get hurt from it.
Right.
That's the idea behind it. The best thing about the ADA for me is the people. If I didn't like the people that I worked with, I wouldn't stay in that battalion for 14 years now.
Right. Yeah.
We work ourselves a lot. It's not a unit you want to go to if you like sitting around.
Right.
It's not a unit you want to go to if you don't want to have a high up tempo, because you will.
Yeah.
If you come to the battalion, you will deploy. Period.
And you guys train on it, and that's
all the time.
best part.
That's the best part, and it's the worst part, right?
Yeah.
So I've never been an engineer. I used to work on a farm, and I could run tractors and payloader and skid steer, right? So I understand how the equipment works, but I've never been an engineer. But I know that when they go out and train, they get to build something. They get to build whatever they're building, and when they're done with it, maybe they have to fill it in.
Right.
But they got to see what they did. Where when we go train, you train for time, or you don't train for time. You do specific tasks, and you need to have them done in under a certain amount of time, again and again and again and again and again. You train to train for the sake of training, and it can really weigh on people when they don't get to see much other than a grade score on a general knowledge test or a score on a VACR test, visual aircraft combat recognition, I believe. Or they see time on missile reload or convert to manpads. That's really hard for a lot of Joes because you don't get anything out of it. You don't get to go build something and see it. You just get to practice again and again and again.
You guys train so much, and there's something to say about that, right? If we're going to send anyone over, like, who are you going to send? Well, the guys that have been training nonstop, that when they get into a zone or wherever they need to go, they are the most effective and the most lethal. So, so to kind of caveat onto what you were talking about, like not an engineer, right, or a mechanic, you're also a car guy, though.
I am a car guy. Yeah, it is the other thing that I'm cursed with.
You got an old Chevelle, right?
It's a Bel Air.
Bel Air, excuse me.
Not a Chevelle.
Sorry.
That's okay.
So what got you into working on cars and stuff like that?
I grew up, just west of Bismarck, about 20 miles, right over by Sweetbriar.
Yeah.
We had 80 acres, and 79 of them were covered with cars. My late stepdad rebuilt cars for people and for himself all the time. That's all we did on the farm was, go back to the 50s in Minneapolis, or we would work on cars on the farm.
Right.
And it took me a couple years after high school to really want to do things with cars. But looking back, it was growing up there and playing Need for Speed Underground, Need for Speed Underground 2, and Gran Turismo 3 on the PlayStation 2. That sort of stuff really made me like cars, but I never, growing up, I liked to play cars on video games, but I didn't really. I wasn't old enough to work on them, but I didn't,
Yeah. I'm gonna sound like an old fart here, but so we grew up same thing. Need for Speed Underground, Need for Speed Most Wanted, Dubstep, whatever that old dub game was. And recently,
Midnight Club Dub Edition.
Yeah, there you go.
There
Midnight
it is.
Club. There
That
it is.
one.
Oh my gosh, man, that was a classic.
It was.
Yeah, racing on a video game back then was so different than real life. So, on that note, did you ever, or like, so you're working on cars? Do you ever like race anything? I know like there's derbies around town, etc. Do you ever work on those kind of cars?
I've never worked on a derby car. I've never demolition derbied. I have a lot of friends that have
Sure.
that worked on them and done it themselves, and it looks like a ton of fun.
Yeah.
I don't like breaking cars like that. I really don't like breaking cars like that.
What's your favorite car to work on?
Primarily, I've worked on Subarus over the last 10 years.
Well, they always break.
That's true. They do always break, but not mechanically break.
Yeah,
not the body work as much.
Shooting lasers over here.
Yeah. We got back from that first DC mission about 10 years ago, and
Sure.
I bought my first sports car, and it was a 2004 RX-8.
Okay.
And I took it apart a couple times, and my roommate at the time owned a small company where we sold performance parts, and he goes, "You want to work on cars?" And I go, "I don't know, maybe." And he goes, "Okay, well, we'll start advertising." And we worked on Subarus primarily because he had one as his actual race car, and I had one as a little daily driver, and we didn't know anything at all for those first couple of years, and I'm sure there are some local people that are going to listen to this and be like, "Are you kidding me?" we didn't know. I don't know who brought their cars to us back in 2014, but people did. People did, and we did our best. There was the information out there was not the way it is now.
Oh yeah.
A lot of stuff. I can't tell you how many hours I spent on forums looking up how to fix problems and looking to see what other people had done. Just because 10 years ago the market for Subarus wasn't. It was big, but it wasn't. There weren't as many off-the-shelf things that you could just buy and install.
Right. Well, and information, like you said, is so accessible now.
Like it's so accessible, but nobody wants to. I'm on a lot of different pages on Facebook where people ask the same question over and over again, and there's, I say a simple Google search, right? But the algorithm is crazy now. There are forums for everything, right? And most of them are still managed by people that care about whatever platform you're talking about. If you spend, an hour looking for a problem on Google, you could probably find it, but it's easier to post on a Facebook group and be like, "This is my XYZ problem," and then not respond to anyone because you're getting flamed because you didn't just look it up. I can't tell you how many times I've been asked by soldiers specific questions about, specific pieces of equipment that we use. And I'll take a screenshot out of the FM, or not out of the TM or the operator guide, and I'll send it to them. And I'll be, "Oh, can I get that from you?" And I look back, and I've already emailed it to him at least once. It's like, yeah, I'll send it to you again, but you got to open the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
My phone's always on, but man.
Yeah.
One that I've referenced currently is FM 44-44.
Okay.
I believe it's Stinger platoon or Stinger battery techniques and
Sure.
whatever. It was updated a couple years ago, but before that, it was like early 90s.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't get equipment right away.
well, Stinger's been around a long time, but
That's true.
the FM for how a Stinger unit fights hadn't been changed in a long time, and it needs to be updated again already after what we've seen, in the European theater currently.
Oh yeah.
Things change every day. But it's just one of those things that you can have people that write doctrine, but there aren't enough people that write doctrine, and even if there were. I've heard it from, quite a few soldiers that, "Oh, I've never read that." I'm like, "Why haven't you read it? That's how we're supposed to fight." "Well, because the people that write that don't know." I'm like, "Well, you can think that, but I'm pretty sure they do. They spend a lot of time wargaming these things, so they put out accurate information."
There's a great movie reference in regards to that. Have you watched Saving Private Ryan? Okay. The sock with the gel.
Oh yeah.
Where is that found? It was in a manual apparently. That's a funny thing how we talk about that.
The bomb that sticks. It's a sticky bomb.
Exactly. Take some tar, whatever the heck it
Yep.
is.
Some axle grease and
exactly.
some composition B.
Well, and so that's we talk about that all the time with.
It's in.
Yeah.
Pretty sure Tom Hanks says it's in the handbook if you want to look it up.
Yes, it's in the fighting handbook.
And one of the other soldiers is like, we're fresh out of handbooks right now.
Yeah, because we're overseas. Well, and you think about it, a lot of our job, especially with yourself being a chief, being a SME on a lot of different types of things. Well, those TMs, FMs really matter because it sets your base standard for how to train other people. So, in regards to training other people, when you sent out this 4444 to other people, and they're like, oh, okay, right on, right on, right on. Do you? I guess the best way to put this is when you go out and train into anything, are you pulling out the FM not every time, or how do you work at it?
That's a complicated question. Being a warrant officer, I don't technically train people.
True.
Right, because that's an NCO's job. That's your job. Your job is to train.
Crap.
That's a you thing. There's a whole lot of things out there
Yes.
that are warrant officer things, but training is not one of them. I will teach. I will instruct. Right? I'll show you how to do something the first or second time. But you can show your Joes. Right? Because I don't need a million Joes to come up to me and ask me the same question. They can ask that to you, and if you don't have the answer, then you can come find me. Right? I can't tell you how many times I've had a younger soldier come up to me. Hey, Chief, do you know how to blah 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 blah? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, but did you ask your first line leader? Who's your squad leader? Well, Sergeant so and so. Did you ask them? I'm like, go ask them first. If they don't know it, have them come talk to me.
Yeah. Well, and so when we talk about setting base standards, and 100% NCOs are the training for it, or, they are the ones to get the Joes doing what they need to do.
Yes,
you got that.
They have to be.
100%.
You have to be the backbone of the army. It's not me anymore.
Yeah. So when you guys, we can kind of caveat back into what you do full time. So when you are at the ADA, the people are great, the mission is awesome, and just the expectation of you guys is held to such a high standard.
Yes. And that sounds really weird to say, right? Because every time you have a battery command or battalion command changeover, I don't think it matters what battery or what battalion you're at.
Right.
Oh, this is the best battalion I've ever. Blah 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 blah. And you hear that from every single senior leader that you work with. I assume. I don't know. I haven't been in any other battalions. I assume so.
Oh, yeah. The ADA specifically, everyone I meet, you guys, I mean, gosh, Ouzelfinch. Like, you guys, under that, I don't know. Yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about the Ouzelfinch.
You want to talk about the Ouzelfinch?
Let's talk about the Ouzelfinch. For anyone listening online, if you don't know what the Ouzelfinch is, just Google it. It's not some weird thing that I'm telling you to go Google. I mean, it's a little weird.
It's a little weird.
It looks messed
It's a little
up.
weird. Yeah.
Do you know, like, the backstory of the Ouzelfinch?
I don't remember the name of I believe it was a general or some battalion commander that saw it.
Sure.
Way back in the day. But, look it up. I don't want to get into the history of the Ouzelfinch.
Every Ouzelfinch has got its own missile and its own claw, which I think is...
Well, so...
Or maybe I'm wrong on
no,
that.
I
Maybe
think
they just take corrective.
the Ouzelfinch has changed a couple times. I think the iteration that people are most used to is it's got like a pair of missiles in one hand, and it's got like a MiG. It's probably like a MiG-25 or some sort of old Soviet aircraft in the other one, right? Because the Ouzelfinch took out those ballistic missiles and it took out that Soviet aircraft.
Oh.
Right.
See, there's some history.
Yeah. It's overgone a couple changes over the last couple of years. But
yeah, I mean it's like our
decades.
uniforms. It
Yeah.
just gets changed every once in a while. So with the ADA, what is your favorite part about the training you guys get to do, or like what's the best training you've ever experienced with?
The best training, NTC.
Oh wow!
I've been there twice now, but you won't find more realistic training than you will at the national training centers. I've been to NTC twice, once in 2016 and once in 2019 with Bravo and Charlie batteries. We won the Hamilton Award both times we were there.
Heck yeah!
For being the best air defense battery in the Army.
Heck yeah!
We did very well both times we went because our senior leaders and our operators were the best trained that we could make them, as best trained as we could get them before we went out there. And that's what you have to do when you go to a training event like that. You have to build the training time in advance. So when you get there, your guys can operate and they can be self-sufficient. Because it's not like it is when you're back at the armory and you're like, oh, we're going to go out to the garrison wets and we're going to go do whatever, blah, 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 blah. Because there's tons of safety and, your phones work and you're not much more than a phone call away from whatever you need. When you're in the box at NTC or JRTC, it can be it'd be several hours before somebody can get to you, right? If your radio goes down, you don't have cell coverage, and you're not supposed to use your cell phones at either of those places, right? But if it's like a life or death thing, turn your cell phone on.
Yeah.
That's you have to have people that are prepared to go to a high stress environment and do their job proficiently, right? In all aspects. Not I can do missile reload in under 30 seconds because I did nothing but practice that. You have to have all of the critical skills of your MOS ready to go, and all of your soldier tasks ready to go. That's what makes NTC and JRTC such good training locations, right? Because when you're out in the woods by yourself, it's you. Mm-hmm. It's you and your team leader, you and your gunner out there by yourselves, and you got to make it work. Whatever it is, you got to make it work. Mm-hmm. You don't get a whole lot of opportunities to do that, and even the active duty doesn't.
Yeah.
You don't get a whole lot of opportunities to go out for 2 weeks into a simulated combat environment and go fight the enemy and win.
Yeah.
NTC is a blast.
Sure.
Not everybody has fun there.
Yeah, I mean that's all subjective.
It's all subjective.
You're there to do a job, like
you
said.
If you like your job, it's a blast because you get to do it. Mm-hmm. Our Avenger team members are not, or Avenger crewmen, and our radar operators. Most of them don't have an OC with them because we're able to move around autonomously, right? And we practice night driving. We practice, march order in place, and we do all this stuff, and you become proficient at it. But most of the time, you don't have an OC with you. You need to double the force that goes down for one of those, and you can't really easily double a brigade combat team, so everyone has an observer controller. So a lot of times, like when you go out there, you are by yourself. Yeah. You get a grid from your platoon leader, and you got to go mosey your way over to that grid, and link up with whatever unit is closest to you, so you can get water, food, ammo. You should go to one of these. It helps you not get caught up on like the little things, right?
Have you ever done the rollover training?
Yeah, the heat simulator.
Yeah,
way back in the day.
Inverts the Humvee.
Yep, that we did that back before we mowed for that first DC mission. The PTAE team was still very well alive back then.
Yeah.
I don't remember what PTAE stands for, but they were there's a bunch of old dogs that used to do that full time because we had such a high op tempo in the state. With the engineers deploying all the time, and with the combat engineers going all the time, and the several MOBs that the ADA did before we went to DC. That was just part of it, where you did rollover training.
Yeah.
That was it was always good training, kind of.
It became more of a fun thing to do.
Yeah. It makes you really wonder, like, why do we secure fire extinguishers down with the absolute worst straps in the world, right? Like I've done motorsports before, right?
Yeah.
I still kind of do motorsports, or I'm trying to. It's financially intensive and it takes a lot of time. But like the fire extinguisher mounts that I put in my race car are not the flimsy 2-tab metal ones that we have all of them here and that come factory with the fire extinguisher when you buy it, because those things are awful. They're terrible. Oh man, and I know a lot of the new Humvees have they have automatic fire suppression systems in them now, which is really cool. But it's the heat simulator was cool, and it's like good to like unstrap yourself when you're hanging upside down and get out of the vehicle. That's kind of cool. Depending on the rollover, depending how fast you're going, I'm not sure if it's a great training metric.
Well, I think it's there. This is so bad.
I
think it's there so when it happens, you're like, oh.
Well, yeah.
Okay, I know what I'm doing now.
It's not meant for like it's not meant to simulate a rollover when you're like driving to camp and it's December and you hit a patch of ice and roll your Humvee at 55 miles an hour. It's meant to when you're driving on the side of a hill and the driver doesn't realize that we're quickly approaching the
turn or whatever.
The bank angle that you can drive whatever Humvee you're in, and then you roll it over onto its lid once or twice, or it rolls down the hill until it stops.
Yeah,
I think
Humvees don't have Tacoma tilt either.
No. I think that's more what the heat trainer was for. Is that those slow speed, like we shouldn't have tried to drive around this hill sort of fall over.
Yeah. But you're here now.
Yeah.
Let's get out of it.
Yeah. What did you forget to secure properly or put in the hatch?
Yeah.
Well, what did you forget to put in the hatch? Those 4 ammo cans that are on the floor? Yeah, they're
gonna bust
they're
your face
in your
up,
face
man.
now.
Yeah. Well, and that's, and you know, you don't think about those things.
Nope.
That's the reason why you do it.
Yep.
You know. So when that NCO or whoever's barking at you saying secure your gear,
Yep.
like do it.
Yep.
Because.
Yep. There are load plans for a reason.
Yeah. There's a safety brief for everything.
Yeah. There's a
right?
safety brief for everything. There's a load plan for everything for a reason.
So when we talk about training, whether it's the the rollover thing that we just talked about.
Yep.
I mean, have you guys started? I've seen it happen. Like I mean, obviously it depends on when we get it, if we ever will. But our virtual reality.
Oh, we already have it. There's Stinger missile trainers with VR that you set up all the cameras in like a room and you put the headset on. You and your I think it's a 2-man system where you and your TC or whoever's
Sure.
your A gunner essentially, not A gunner, right? But the other person that helps you fire the weapon system.
Yeah, you're good.
They're in there together.
Mm-hmm.
We have those for man pads. It's way better than the old ones. The old ones, you used to have the man pad Stinger missile, and then there was like a screen that they attached to it, and then you had to stare at this terrible screen and like to spin around in the room to try to find the aircraft and the screen. The VR stuff is a lot cooler.
Virtual reality has had such a huge impact on just. We have the EST range at Camp Grafton.
Yep.
Sometimes
I think a lot of that stuff is starting to implement VR too now, isn't it? For like the
yeah.
convoy simulations and stuff. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, well, and you think about that, like, what else can we do in VR? Like, and that just opens up the possibilities to so much more.
Yep.
It's no longer playing Arma 3 on a,
Oh man, that was terrible. Oh, I think we did that at the end of AIT. I think it was like a pilot that we did. This was back in 2011. Mm-hmm. It has came a long way since then.
Yeah.
But there's still no substitute for getting Joes out with rifles and 100%. Going and patrolling for 5K.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if anybody in the state does it, but something that I'd really like to do on a drill weekend, especially because like I drill up in Grand Forks and it's awful all the time. I'd love to go snowshoeing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Maybe it's just because I'm a part of HHB and I'm not in a line battery most of the time that we don't like. I know we've got to have snow things. We live in North Dakota.
Yeah, no, we have.
I'd love to go. Like if we have like biathlon, right?
There's a couple of different training. I know aviation does it. But they have like a winterized training, right, where you learn how to build an entire and like survive. Like it's I forget, but there are. I don't know if they're like.
I know finding training areas to do things are the hard part, but I'd love to like go with one of our batteries when they're on like a winter drill weekend, and everybody puts their cold weather gear on. And we throw some snowshoes on. And we do like a dismounted patrol or like an air defense patrol where like some of the guys are carrying Stingers and we have our crew serves out and go do like a weapon squad sort of thing. Not that it's really our job or our MOS, but it's something different. I don't think I want to snowshoe for 10 miles.
No.
But leading up to it, or like if you tell me in like June, like hey, in January drill we're gonna do this, no matter the weather, make sure you're ready physically and that you bring your gear. That would have to be like an event because there's a whole. I say this would be really cool, right? Without looking to the FM and looking into the regs surrounding extreme cold weather operations, right? Because there are a whole lot of different regs that go on about work rest cycles and everything else, especially when you're dealing with extreme cold. We always think about extreme heat because we're from here and we sort of deal with the cold, but like the way we deal with the cold in North Dakota is a lot different than they deal with the cold in other places because we just sort of when it's minus 30, you just don't go outside. We do have a lot of that. I've got the marshmallow suit just like you do. We all have goggles. And we all have over boots and cold weather boots. I've never used my cold weather boots.
Oh, really?
Have you?
Yeah. Yeah.
In 2016?
Yeah.
Okay. See, that makes sense.
And so like you got to think, right? So I mean, granted, this was
more not like the cold weather boots, like the
mutlocks, the inserts.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never used those.
Yeah. Well, you think about it, right? You're on a base or you're on an area, right? And you're sending constant vehicle throughs to shift changes, etc. Things start to get marshy,
yeah,
right?
That makes sense.
So, and the funny thing is, right, you're setting up, I mean, the entire base is radiating heat compared to the minus 30 below zero, right? You're going to get snow, but when that eventually has its die-down period and things start to melt, it's a soup. Like, it is just ugly.
That makes sense.
So, yeah, I tore out the mutlocks, I tore out the inserts, I had the guard Uggs.
Yeah,
what we would call
the guard
them,
Uggs.
make you look like a Gears of War character because
Yeah,
the boots
those-
were so big
those
when it was
green
too wet.
boots.
I haven't used them since, right?
Okay.
Like, sure, yeah, you know, your marshmallow thing is the comfiest thing in
I
the
don't think I've
world.
ever put that on.
Really?
No.
Oh,
I
see,
put like the waffles on underneath my regular uniform and maybe like a windproof top. But I also, you know,
well, it depends on what you want to do.
it depends what you're doing too.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and you know, you think about it, right? Who's going to be wearing the waffles compared to the marshmallow suit?
Mhm.
Well, the guys going outside all the time.
Yeah, the
probably
guys
wear
that
the
are
marshmallow suit.
that are watching the radar and running the radar, and the guys that are outside doing crew drills in the wintertime, they're probably gonna have their marshmallow suits on.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and if you're stuck in the maintenance bay, okay,
Yeah.
well, you can get away with a waffle
Yeah,
top
or if
and
you're
a
gonna
fleece.
be outside for 20 minutes because somebody doesn't know how to turn something on,
Yeah,
probably just
wait
gonna wear
for
a
the
waffle.
engine light to go off.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
If you're listening online, thank you so much. We were super happy to have Leo on the podcast today. And if you ever want to listen to any of our episodes, you can find those on Divids or on any streaming service you like, whether that be Amazon, Pandora, Spotify, etc. So, with that being said, we'll catch you next time.